What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Evening Alpha. This is the show where we basically talk about everything cool that's happening in the NFT space. Makes it different than everything else? Well, we don't really do clickbait shit here. Like, there's no like the 5 amazing NFTs you have to buy today. Like we don't do that at all. What we do and who we are founders of real world projects. We're out there in space. We actually do this stuff. And so one of the things that I love to do and that we get an opportunity to do here is to talk to other founders, other entrepreneurs in the space, and really get at the heart of kind of the behind the scenes of the project, right? Like not just about mint dates and everything else, but what it actually takes to launch one of these things. Because from the outside looking in, it seems so simple. You don't just put have some algorithm that magically makes some images and you just launch it and make $1 million, right? Like, it's pretty simple. No, it's not at all. So tonight I am super blessed. We are excited to have Evan from Macroverse. And Evan, welcome, brother.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, I'm incredibly excited. So one of the first questions we always ask is really just to get an overview of the project. So what is Macroverse? What is Dead Town? And tell us about it.
Well, we're storytellers at heart. So if you'll allow me, I'm going to take you on my kind of secret origin story, and all these dots will connect as we get here. So I'm an illustrator initially. I went to art school, have an illustration degree. I thought I was going to draw comics, so that was always my kind of. I've been a comics fan since I was 6 years old. Like, that was my entire kind of mission. And then when I went to art school, anyone that knows a phenomenal comic artist named Brian Stelfreeze.
Dude, okay, we're going to have a lot to talk about.
So Brian was one of my early mentors. He took me under his wing when I was 14, and I sent him samples all the time, and he gave me feedback. When I was in art school, he said, take all that stuff that you want to do with comics, set it aside. When you graduate, if you want to pick it back up, it's going to be there for you. Best advice I could have ever gotten. And when I came out of school, I recruited my teachers and started a branding and media agency instead. So
that's awesome.
Came out of school. It was like right at the height when Flash was taking over the web. So the beginning of my career was, high-end interactive websites and, web development. That led to all kinds of interesting projects. I built my whole company and really my whole career on the premise of, hey, do you guys do X? And I would just go, yes, of course, every day. And then get off the phone and go, how do we do this? Who do we need? What are we going to put together? So that led to doing animated pilots with a Korean partner. It led to children's books for Target. It led to, prototyping early interactive stuff with the creator of Choose Your Own Adventure. All kinds of interesting, fun projects. And then this is going to now start to tie into where Macroverse came from. I met one of my co-founders in Macroverse almost 20 years ago when he was coming up through the film and television side of the world. When I met him, he was working on Transformers and, started as a PA and kind of literally worked his way up now as a first AD. And so has worked on everything from Transformers to the most recent season of Barry and kind of every, thing in between. Seth Rogen, just on and on and on, Michael Bay, obviously. So crazy ride for him. But as we became friends, I'll admit probably over a couple of too many drinks one night, we were kind of sitting around going, we have these really awesome careers and we're just going to be making stuff for other people for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
And we really wanted to flip to the other side of that equation. And so in a post-Tarantino Hollywood, the obvious way to do that is to write a screenplay and become a rich and famous director. And so we wrote a screenplay, and we were fortunate enough that first screenplay did get optioned, and that landed us at CAA, which is one of the big talent agencies, for about 5 minutes. Did a lot of pitching, got the water bottle tour of LA. And then we found our home in the video game world. So we spent the next decade writing, directing, and producing video game content. And along that path, we met the third co-founder in Macroverse. And so Ricky, our third co-founder, literally started the mobile gaming division at Disney before the iPhone was a thing. So saw the writing on the wall, went down that road. He had a background in the console side of gaming prior to that, and actually worked at Amblin even prior to that. And so, really kind of been a veteran of the game world for the last 20 years. And so the three of us about 2 years ago, actually the final piece of the puzzle is a movie called The Boondock Saints. And so if anyone is familiar with that, it's this kind of cult classic.
Oh yeah.
Pre-Walking Dead, Norman Reedus, Sean Patrick Flannery, who was star of young Indiana Jones. And I saw the movie, met the director, and pitched them on making a graphic novel series. So this was my way back into comics, and said, this sequel is coming out. This should be a franchise. These guys are basically, trench coat Batman. Let's make a graphic novel series of this. So that brought me back into comics, and it brought me back into comics in a very interesting way, because I put that whole project together. It was another yes and figure it out. So I found the publisher, dealt with Diamond for distribution, did the whole convention circuit, the whole 9 yards. So we spent about a year doing that series, and went all over the country, made deals with Barnes and Noble, just everything you have to do to publish a book. And at the end of that, we had great sales for an indie series, and it was an incredible experience. And I also came out of it going, the comics industry is broken. Comics, but this 50-year-old business model makes 0 sense. Yep. As creators, we want to tell more stories. We want to make more stuff. And actually comics is a great way to do it. Of course, the nature of comics driving the rest of the entertainment industry, just totally makes sense. But we were like, this is not the way to do it. And so we kept working on other stuff. And in the background, spent about 2 years figuring out if we could solve kind of two problems. So number one, is there a digitally native format for comics? Because I don't think Webtoons is a digitally native format for comics.
100% agree.
Web page.
Yeah.
And number two, is there a business model that makes sense for creators? And Webtoons is awesome in the fact that it has a huge audience, but it's terrible for monetizing that audience. And so we figured out what we think the right format is for digital comics. And so we do have an app, which is live, which is that format. We call it a tap story, and we can talk more about that if you want to.
Sure.
And then number two, the monetization model initially started as the rest of entertainment has gone to streaming and comics have not. So if it's good enough for Netflix, it's good enough for comics. And so we figured out a way to kind of create a model for creators where your revenue participation is directly tied to your readership, as opposed to being an ad-supported model or that sort of thing. So that when we have a bunch of friends who are Webtoons creators who have hundreds of thousands of subscribers and are not doing badly, but they're certainly not making hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
So in our model, if you did have those kind of numbers, you would make that kind of money. It's because it's a subscription service. It's because it's super curated, super high quality. So we spent about a year bringing on creators. We've got about 100 creators in the pool of people that we've been working with. We've launched about 50 series. We've about 1,000 episodes of content deep at this point.
And this is on the app.
This is on the app.
Okay.
And then about a year and a half ago, we had the moment in the pandemic that so many of us had, where we ended up on Clubhouse and heard about the Beeple sale, and started to be in these conversations with, what Blau was doing on the music side, and this kind of explosion of NFT art, and kind of early experiments around that. We got to know some of the people at the space in those early days. I very much regret that I was in the room when Bored Apes were minting and did not mint any. So I will. That was a miss. But what we saw immediately were the combination of what we had built on the digital comic side and collectability just felt like such a complete no-brainer that it completely changed our thinking. We had that light bulb moment. I haven't been this excited about something, since I was 20. And I think there's, for those people that are kind of skeptical about NFTs and those sorts of things, you'll hear this from anyone who's been in any part of building anything. There's a reason we're all so excited about this, and it's because it is this once in a lifetime technology shift that is going to change everything. Like it or not, is going to change everything. And so I've been fully red pilled. I like to say I was sipping the Kool-Aid. Now I'm made out of the Kool-Aid. I will be the first to admit that. But it's based on a lot of research and a lot of thinking and a lot of development. And now we think we're building, kind of the Marvel of the future, if you want to put it in that context, where it goes from comics and then out into other media, and ultimately kind of a Web3 studio for, all of entertainment. So I'll stop talking there. But
no, I have so many questions. So working backwards really quick. So one of my screeds, the thing, my little soapbox, my little Stan soapbox moment is telling artists, because I see so many people in comics and mainstream comics to this day that they do not, for whatever reason, they do not like NFTs, they do not like crypto. So everything is evil, right? It is so negative and so bad, and they're pushing it away so hard. And I'm like, you guys, like, this is the moment you've all been waiting for decades. Everything you thought you wanted is here right now, and you're blowing it. And I'm like, don't miss the boat. Like, this is the one opportunity you have right now, like the next 3 to 5 years max, before it really goes super mainstream and everything is hardcore established. Like, this is the moment you have this window. This is the .com boom. This is it. This is the beginning of the whole movement, and you got to be in it.
I mean, put it in comics terms. What I like to tell people is, like, this is Image 2.0, and everyone gets to be a founder.
That's right. In fact, we use that actually internally. Basically the Image model. So for people that don't know, Image was founded by some of the top artists in the early 90s. Basically the breakthrough that Image Comics had is that the only thing that Image owned was their trademarked logo. So it was a place for all of these independent creators to come, and they were able to create their own work and own it. And basically all that Image asked for was like reimbursement on the printing and distribution fees and like a small percentage, so that they could basically keep the lights on. So the goal of Image was actually not to be profitable. It was to be break even, and so that all the creators could basically have their profit. And it worked. I mean, that's where Walking Dead came out of, and Invincible, and pretty much everything else.
I'm sure you know this, but to the point of creators, I mean, I actually love talking to creators that are super skeptical, because it's like, mostly it's based on, like, I read a couple of tweets.
Right. It's always like, well, I read this article that said it was stupid. And I was like, well,
exactly.
I have never, and the other thing that I say, dude, is I have never met anybody who is a hardcore critic of crypto and or NFTs, who also has done it. They don't have a MetaMask. They've never bought a coin. They don't know what gas is. They don't know what Gwei is. They've never purchased it. They've never gone through the process. And so because they've never bought and held and owned and then maybe sold something, they have no context. The minute you do that, it is so self-evident of how amazing it is. It is just life-changing. And so here's my next point. And this is so, okay. I'm going back to the very first thing you said. You talked about Brian Stelfreeze.
Yes.
So again, if people don't know, Brian Stelfreeze is a effing legend in comics. So here's a funny story, Evan. I know exactly how old you are, and I know exactly where you were living, because I also was at Gaijin Studios.
Yes.
So I made the trek, and I was in college, and Gaijin was in our city. I went over there, and same thing. Brian took me under his arm, and I came out there many times. It was him and Adam Hughes was out there, and Carl Story and Pearson was still over there. Like, that whole crew was over there. And Brian spent time with me, taught me real perspective, not just 3-point perspective. He was like, I'd never forget it. In fact, up here, I still have his drawings from amazing. Like 1990, whatever. And it was like, well, you might have, 3-point perspective, right? And I was like, well, yeah. He was like, do you know how to do 150-point perspective? And I was like, what? No. And he did this whole like line. He lined out everything and ended up drawing like this perfect Lamborghini in that Brian Stelfreeze style. And I was like, what is going on? Blew my mind. I brought him over because I went to Atlanta College of Art. For school. And so I had him come over there and brought him into class, and we did all this stuff. And I still, I'm gonna dox myself real quick. Another friend of mine got permission from Adam to photocopy his sketchbook.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And to this day, I still have it.
That's amazing.
So this is the Adam Hughes sketchbook and some other things, but like circa like, was it 1990?
13, yeah.
1998, yeah. Gen 13, all this stuff. Like, so it's like all the classic sketchbook stuff.
Yeah, that's so cool. Now I'm super
crazy.
Yeah,
dude, it's like one of my most prized. It just never gets old.
That's amazing.
So that's awesome. So that's incredible. That's very few people went through the same path.
Well, what's funny is like very few people went through the same path, and yet anyone you have ever met that has spent 15 minutes with Brian Stelfreeze will have some version of the same story. Like the dude is like not only an incredible artist, but
the nicest guy in the history.
Most wonderful human beings I ever met. Just
a genuine guy.
And
a
genius. Like, as far as like storytelling, art, I mean, you just name it. Like, yeah. So I want to get Brian into NFTs. That's
I know 100%. You and me both, man.
Yeah,
like he needs to be in the space for real.
Yeah.
Another question that I have, and this is something that I've talked about to a few people, but I think as someone who is both into comics and as an NFT project owner / founder, you would have some interesting insight in how odd is it? Or I guess I shouldn't pre-frame the question. What is your take on how, I don't know how to frame this. How amazing is it? How amazing is it that with comics being in the situation that it's in, and for those that are in comics, we all know it's kind of on its last leg, man. It's not doing good. Disney and Warner have not been treating it well. The fans, we could go on a whole screed on that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
With that said, though, one of the things that surprised me the most when I got into NFTs for beginning into it was how every single NFT project had a comic component to it.
Yes.
All of them.
And no one knows how to make comics. Yes.
And no one knows how to make comics.
Yes. 100%.
So I'm curious, as someone who actually understands comics, I've printed my own comics. I've gone through Diamond Distributors. I've done the whole tour thing, and we've had booths at New York. I've been to New York Comic Con every year except like last year.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, as somebody who's done the same thing.
Yeah.
Like what's your perspective on this? Like, why do you think it is? I have a couple theories. So a couple theories, and then I think an insight which I perceive as a big opportunity for those of us that do know how to make comics. So I think there's a couple things at play. One is I think you can kind of zoom out and look at, especially PFP projects that have kind of elaborate roadmaps and these sorts of things that have kind of evolved in the space where no one knows how to make anything. So like this is I think kind of a systemic thing, which I think the industry is starting to kind of wake up to a little bit, which is there's a lot of like, okay, I minted this character. There are these 100 promises behind it. And, for a while it was like everybody was making a game. Yeah. And no one on the team has ever made a game. Right.
So, it's like, plus games take 2 to 3 years to make if you're going to make a good one. So, it's like there's just a mismatch of like thinking that making a bunch of money is going to unlock this ability to make a bunch of stuff.
Right.
And certainly money helps, but it's not the answer. So it's like, you need people that actually do know how to make this stuff. And so I think it's, what sets you apart and us apart is that we actually do know how to make this stuff. And so when we talk about, we can use these new kind of tools with NFTs, or I like to think of them as kind of like composable layers of storytelling, then these people like us that actually have done it and know how to do it, know how to work with other people to do it, does create an advantage not only in our own projects, but one of the things that we identified and led us to partner with a couple of other projects was exactly that idea. It was like, okay, you want to do storytelling. No one on that team knows how to do it, but you've got an interesting community. You've got an interesting group of characters. There's something cool in this project. Let us come in and help build that. And so we've partnered with a couple projects where we've, existing collections that wanted to go in that direction, where we saw something valuable in it and we could kind of bring that expertise to the party.
So you're going from so projects that already have a collection out.
Yeah.
Are you talking specifically like comics, like saying, hey, we'll do your
comic?
So or is it...
Exactly. So like the example, which has been the most publicly announced, there's a project called the Bushidos. Bushidos is a super cool project. The founder of it's an amazing illustrator who works at Coinbase and also has a thriving career as an illustrator. And they did this NFT project that initially was this very stylized, very graphic kind of samurai style characters. He had some really interesting, good kind of foundational ideas for the story and the lore. And we got introduced by a mutual friend, and it was just, it was a natural connection. But we had started to kind of like saw these projects talking about making comics. Nobody knows how to make comics. Nobody knows how to tell a story. But there's some interesting ideas, like there are building blocks here that could go somewhere. And so we've actually kind of developed this whole methodology, which is around we have run shows in different arenas. We've worked with writers. We've put all these teams together. Can we do that at scale in a community? Can you run a writer's room not with 6 people, but with 100 people or potentially 1,000 people? And so one of our theories and theses is that one of the critical skill sets in Web3, and especially in Web3 storytelling, is essentially a supercharged showrunner. And so the concept is, if you're show running something, you got to be able to curate good ideas and bad ideas, or even just good ideas and ideas that aren't aligned with the central thesis of the thing in the story that you want to make, or the style of the thing that you want to create. And so being able to curate as a storyteller with a bunch of other people that have a bunch of ideas is a great thing to do inside of a community. It also answers the question of like, I minted something, now what? And so, we're doing this our own projects. We're, partnering with a couple of other projects to do this as well. So we'll actually go in and work with those communities, teach basic storytelling fundamentals. So, starting with, okay, no one here has ever written anything before, or maybe you have, but you haven't done it professionally. So how do we think about storytelling? And, kind of fundamentally character driving plot, not plot driving, the characters. And so just some real basic core concepts to get people's heads wrapped around, how to approach this stuff. And then our methodology has kind of developed into, now that we've had this kind of fundamental kind of 3 or 4 weeks of kind of teaching storytelling principles, now let the community pitch ideas based on the fundamental kind of concepts in the lore, and then curate those conversations. So it goes about a 6-week process for us, where we're kind of bringing the community through this piece where we're kind of building the story and the world and the universe that we're now going to play inside of together. And then our approach has been to turn that into a dual track storytelling process, where one is the core story that's going to become this comic series. And the second piece is let the community pitch ideas for an anthology. And so what is, a core story and a bunch of side stories that kind of flesh out 2 parts of the world. And then we have the ability to turn those into comics and put them out on our platform and do all the other stuff.
So when you're going out to these communities and you're giving them basically a course or an education on storytelling, how does that set up? Is it just like a couple times a week, or do you just set up a schedule? Like I'm curious about this because in our community we're starting to do the same types of things.
Yeah, right? For sure. So what we found is generally weekly. And so like in our own Discord, it's every Wednesday at 4:00 Pacific. So actually just got finished with that before we jumped on. And it's, it's kind of an evolutionary process. So we do spend the first kind of 2 to 4 weeks both figuring out what the temperature of the room is as far as who's going to be the most engaged, and kind of what the levels of participation are, where are people coming from as far as both their interest and their kind of skill set, for lack of a better way to say that. And so teaching those kind of fundamentals while also kind of figuring out who our collaborators are. And what I will say is like I would never have guessed a year ago that this would have been the thing that I've fallen so in love with, but it's like the genuine ability of people that are just people that watch movies and watch TV and read comics and engage with pop culture in a way that certainly wasn't the case 10 years ago, but are so entrenched in, things that the audience has gotten smarter, for lack of a better way to say it. And if we can channel that energy and bring people's creativity out of them, the result is 10 times better than if we had sat there in a room by ourselves, coming up with
100%.
stuff.
Oh yeah.
And that's what's so cool is you get real investment from the community, and like they get to see this develop right in front of their eyes, and they get to see like, oh, that was my idea and that was your idea, and somehow those got meshed together in a way that makes sense. And so this this showrunner skill set in community, the way I think of it is that our job is not to push the conversation forward as much as it is to look for, here are these ideas which are all roughly heading in the same direction. How do we make these all make sense together? Mm-hmm. And then here are these ideas which are very much heading in different directions. How do we come to consensus about which way we want to go? Mm-hmm. And so being able to kind of navigate those two sides of the conversation has been the thing that we found to be kind of the critical component. And I think, as much as we like to think about, kind of what are the core skill sets in Web3 that, weren't necessarily there prior to Web3, that showrunner skill set for people that want to make entertainment, I think is one of those critical ones.
Yeah. And I like how you're expanding it beyond just the team as well, right? So you're doing this in your own Discord, but then you're also populating it across partnership Discords.
Yeah.
And I think what's also interesting is that what I like about your approach in this is that storytelling is something that a lot of storytellers take for granted because you do it so much that it's like, well, who doesn't know how first act, second act, third act, climax, resolution? Like who doesn't know this? Yeah. But of course, most people don't, because most people are consumers of the content, not creators of it. Yeah. And so I think it's interesting that you're teaching through an example almost, right? Like, you're saying, okay, here's the project, or let's come up with an idea together. And then you're teaching them the process of storytelling through figuring out these pieces and these ideas, and so that they get a result, right? But once they actually, and then of course they see the fruits of their labor, they see the benefit of that. But then once that whole process is over, they now have a skill set. So if you're in a partner project, once you're gone from that partner project, that community is still lit up with the knowledge and the skill set of how to create a story.
Exactly. And beyond that, we're really inviting them to tell stories. So it's like we're creating tools, and we're both building an extension to our platform to have a place to now do that. So it starts with building something specifically inside of a particular concept or world or franchise. And then the people that get the most engaged, like this is a gateway in, this is the classic, how do we remove gatekeepers part of Web3 as well, which is, it's like, if you had given me a chance at 14 to go like, hey, I've got an idea for Spider-Man. Like,
that's right.
I mean, I would have been there every single minute of every single day.
That's right. We're doing something very similar, and our pitch is very similar. It's sort of like, well, what if you could have actually owned a piece of Spider-Man? Because from our perspective, it's like, the fans are the people that actually make the character.
That's
like
right.
The character, like we all know, well, some of us know that like it was Stan Lee and Ditko that made Spider-Man. Great. And certainly there was a brilliant concept and a brilliant story, and it was certainly their creativity that pushed these pieces out there. Yeah. But the reason Spider-Man is Spider-Man is because the fans purchased the work, got into it so much that here it is, 80 years later or whatever, and you still have people dressing up like Spider-Man, writing fanfic of Spider-Man, playing the video games, like they're creating their own stories, right? And it's always, I kind of relate it to it sort of like if you look at all this stuff, right? You've got the comics, you've got graphic novels, all this kind of stuff. It's like if this had been NFTs, like I really do visualize nowadays. I'm like, if each one of these is an NFT into a project, right? And you're actually by buying the NFT or collecting the NFT and actually having that same fan engagement, right? And even taking it to that next level where you're actually helping to create the stories, you're helping to create the characters, you're helping to create the universe. You're taking it to a whole nother level, right? Yeah. And then we now also have through smart contract technology, you can take that to as far as you want to go. Like, whether it's reward based or tokenized based or royalty based or however the system ends up working, the fans and the collectors and the people who actually support the project own the project. They are a part of it. They are not just customers, someone who just to be served new shit on a plate, buy it, buy it, buy it, buy it. It's actually engaging, and it's pure creation. And so on our side, we have something called the lore games right now, which is like a 30,000 foot view of creating the cinematic style of the universe. And we've gamified basically the storytelling element of creating large sweeping beats across time, right? And then we're building tools from the bottom up, from idea generation and ideation all the way to allowing people and giving them the tools to create individual stories from the characters, whether they create new characters or use the characters that we're generating. So it's all kind of building together. And then we have professionals as well that can actually like put the finishing touches on it and put it all together for people, right? So that everybody gets to shine, No,
it's a radically different process than most things are traditionally made. And I think if you embrace that and if you enjoy it, it's a massive unlock. And I think it's, this goes to the ethos of the space, but it's like, I guess that's a kind of little side note is like, it's what I've fallen in love with so much about this is, it's always my ambition to make stuff for an audience, but it's so much cooler to make stuff with an audience.
Yeah, 100%.
And
it's like, always better. It's always better. You will always be pleasantly surprised,
Yeah.
We like one of the early projects we did back in the day was we did these toys. So I did a stint in designer toys. I worked with a company called Kid Robot, and I was making toys with them. And then I spun out on my own and started making my own toys. So we started doing these
those are awesome.
these like designer toys. This was a guy out of Germany.
Love it.
This guy stored a bond, right? And this is Matucha from Mexico.
That's amazing.
Right. And but the thing is like I came up with the shape, designed the shape, and I designed the sculpt and did all the prototyping, and then we opened it up to a contest. We just said, let's just see what kind of designs we got. And the designs we got from people from across the world were so much better than I personally could have ever done. Certainly you, as an artist and a creator, you have your own style, you have your own biases, right? But to see so many different styles and such a variety of creativity, if I had designed all 12 myself of the pieces, like there's no chance in hell that I would have had, it would have looked even half as well as it did just by saying, you know what, my part is to facilitate. I created the platform of it. You guys have fun, and let's and the community chose the winners. The community put it on there. I did all the labor, but to see the pieces when they came out, like there was no comparison. It just it blew me away. It blew me away. I was convinced, hands down, that's the way to go from this point on, is to do it with the community, to let people have their creative say in things. And it's such a strange thing that it's taking Web3 and blockchain or crowdfunding. Like, it's so crazy to me that it has to be the year 2020, 2022, whatever. Like, it takes a couple thousand years for this to happen. Like, okay, I guess. You know? Like, I guess things have to move slow for artists and creative people,
Well, it's funny. I mean, this is all kinds of different stuff to unpack, but I think it's, I think artists have been taught traditionally that you're either completely selling out or you're starving. Like, there's not a lot of middle ground, and we don't have a lot of heroes to point to that have been what we would perceive as kind of creatively successful and financially successful.
That's right. That's true.
And there's not a lot of examples of it. People don't talk about it. Most artists don't want to talk about money, even the ones that are successful. So it's like, there's this culture about being an artist, which I think is not particularly conducive to entrepreneurship. So you find that kind of, or actually it's incredibly conducive to entrepreneurship. It's not incredibly conducive to thinking big in the way that tech entrepreneurs do or people in other industries do. It's about surviving. It's not about, changing the world.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So, I think there's that kind of cultural component to it. And then I think on top of that, we've now been trained as a society where what's the most important rewarding thing we can get is a heart or a thumbs up from somebody.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So like the measure of success is like, how many people like this post on Instagram?
Right. Yeah.
Like, that's cool, but it doesn't do anything to disrupt that, that cycle and that culture. Yeah. And so, I think we are up against a little bit of like, when you're looking at what do these tools now empower, and, is it actually possible? And we now have real examples of, people that are like, no, I launched an NFT project and I made millions. And like, hopefully they can fulfill on the things that, they said they wanted to do with that. But I love the fact that there are also artists that, struggled for a decade, never making anything, and are now, making either very good living or massive amounts of money by minting NFTs. Like, this is, I think fundamentally, whenever we have these technology shifts, it doesn't change the core of what it is. There will be, it's not like everyone that, was an artist prior to NFTs can now become rich in NFTs. Like, that's not the way that's going to work. But there are people that never would have been successful prior to NFTs that now can be massively successful.
Right. You've got the medium, the new medium has its own rock stars.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's the new McFarlanes and LaFells. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And going back to image for a second, I don't know if you listen to Rob's podcast, but I love it. It's good. He talks on there all the time about, it's like he started, when he started Youngblood, he was like, he did the math and he was like, if I can sell 100,000 copies, I'm making as much as I'm making at Marvel. And then the first issue sells like, 1.5 million copies. It's like
just to show, he said something that I probably will never forget on one of his podcasts. He said, we were so bad at business. He said, just to think. So this is a little inside baseball, but at the time, and I think still to this day, the number one selling comic was this guy, Jim Lee, who sold X-Men #1. X-Men #1 had 5 covers. It was like you could connect them together to have like a poster, and it had all the X-Men. He was the X-Men artist. Yeah. And so X-Men #1 comes out. It has 5 different covers. So you have all the X-Men and the Magneto in the corner. And it was so popular that it sold over 8 million copies, which to this day is the record. Yeah. Right. And Rob, who was part of that group, and he has the #2 selling comic of all time with X-Force #1. He came out when he said when they were doing Youngblood, he said, we were so bad at business. He said, it's so obvious we were bad at business because if we were even remotely thinking about business, all of us would have done 5 alternate covers for each issue. He said, can you imagine Youngblood with like a 5 cover spread, or Wildcats #1 or Spawn #1? Like, why didn't they do that? They didn't think about it. None of them. Not one of them thought about it. Yeah. They would have 5x'd whatever their take was for those 100%. First issues. 100%. 100%, And so it just goes to show you. So I'm curious. So, because similar to adult fantasy, you guys are doing quite a bit. Yeah. Because we have with Clever Era, our parent company, we have a technology side as well, and we're partnering. We partner with other projects who are using look at our technology. We basically went after the CGC grading side. Right?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's super cool.
Awesome. Thank you, man. And so a lot of people who are also in comics are like, recognize it, and we've had a lot of inbound. So we're partnering up to help them launch. Basically, we're taking on the smart contract side, we're taking on the tech side, and then we're helping them launch special editions using case technology. Yeah. And so similar, you and I both have like there's the comic / brand / IP franchise side. Yeah. But then there's the technology app side. Yes. And so I'm curious, is the pathway, because I'm trying to piece this together in my head, is the path like, okay, you go in and you're partnering with a partner project. They have a really cool project. They've kind of, maybe they've promised a comic and they're like, shit, we don't actually know how to do this. Yeah. So you contact them or they contact you. There's a partnership made. You go into their Discord and educate on the storytelling side to kind of activate that community to kind of pull out some really awesome ideas. And then does that move into you produce that and then it goes into the app and then it goes into another NFT, or how does this? Yeah, I'm trying to figure the funnel out, right?
Yeah, for sure. So it's there's a few of them. So that's one model. So I guess let me take a step back. So I think fundamentally it's finding great IP or generating great IP. I hate saying IP, but it's concepts, stories, franchises. I'm going to get on my soapbox here for 1 second, and then I'll come to the way that the whole methodology works. But it's like I give my almost 9-year-old daughter the hat of chief futurist in our company. And I watch the way that she consumes media, and I am 100% convinced that this is the future of entertainment. I've been preaching this since 2008 when we first were at CAA, and everybody would like look at me with blank stares.
Right.
But basically, I believe we have moved, but are now starting to recognize and have the ability to really realize the notion that there is no such thing as transmedia. There is no such thing as multi-platform.
Thank you.
Everything it's moving to a world which is multi-format and multi-experience. And there's a big distinction there, because using my daughter as the example, I used to watch her do this when she was 5 with Peppa Pig. Now she does this at almost 9 with Minecraft, and there have been many other things in between. But it's like when she falls in love with a franchise, it's not it's everything. Exactly. And so when it was a Peppa Pig kind of day, or now it's a Minecraft kind of day, it's not just play the game. It's play the game, watch YouTube videos, pull out coloring book pages, grab Minecraft toys, build Minecraft Legos, draw Minecraft pictures. I mean, it's like living in this universe. And so, even when people talk about the metaverse, like I don't buy the Zuckerberg VR version of the metaverse. I think we already have versions of the metaverse, and it's about interconnectivity. It's about interoperability, and it's about being able to shift between these kinds of experiences in more interesting and seamless ways. And so NFTs provide a big piece of that, because if you can take your stuff with you, then you can have these assets which give you one experience over here, and then they give you a different experience over here, but they're all building blocks for one bigger ecosystem. And so to bring that back around to your question, the way that we look at it is, we're looking for or creating kind of big umbrella types of franchises that support these kind of multi-format, multi-experience worlds. And so they get expressed in a bunch of ways. And basically, we haven't talked a lot about our roadmap. We were kind of allergic to roadmaps, but now we're gonna deliver a real roadmap in the next couple of weeks. But basically, it goes from big umbrellas for franchises. We've built a completely new type of NFT that's a full comics experience packaged inside of the NFT itself. So it's not a cover and a link to download a PDF. It's like the full experience in the collectible thing.
Oh, nice. Right on. Yeah.
So I think that's going to be really exciting. And our first drop is in July. So we got the first 5 series in this format coming in July. So it basically goes IP, kind of revolutionary interactive comics experience. And then that leads to all kinds of other media, all the kind of community storytelling components, which help build out these universes and create more content, which kind of creates this franchise flywheel, or kind of a network effect amongst those different pieces of content. And then we'll basically develop those into multi-experience types of franchises. And so within our own skill set and kind of collective of creators and people that we work with, we can basically go all the way to film and television. And then at that point, we'll either need some studio partners and distribution partners,
right,
or the ideal scenario, and really the game we're playing, is the studio of the future.
Right.
And so, the real end goal is, we are Marvel Studios, we are Disney, we are our own financing, and then we're just doing distribution deals, not production deals. And so that, all starts with this kind of franchise, digital comics, community building stuff, and then just grows and grows and grows and grows out from there.
Yeah, that's wicked, man. Yeah, I love that. I love the concept of kind of keeping it centralized keeping the creativity centralized, so you're not having to share with all these other large. I mean, basically, you're allowing yourself the option to do as much as you choose to do, and then as much as the community chooses to do. Right.
Yeah. And then the other piece of it, and you touched on this too, is that, we all have a technology background as well. So we look at, the storytelling piece and the technology piece. They're not separate things. They're ways of empowering each other. And so, it goes from, the comics piece, we're talking about the Dead Town drop, which is its own kind of thing, but it ties into this. Then it goes to the comics piece that leads to other types of NFTs and other experiences that come from that. And then we have a platform that we've been building for about a year, which will be the home of the comics, but it also will be its own specific kind of marketplace. And there's, kind of a bunch of ways to connect all those things together. But ultimately, it's like we think there's a home for kind of Web3 fandom and a way for our, we can kind of lead the way, and then we open it up to kind of anyone and everyone to come and participate.
So Dead Town is the current drop, right?
So Dead Town is the first NFT drop that we did. It is a I don't like to call it a PFP drop because I don't think necessarily that hideous zombies are the things that people want to represent themselves as on their social media profiles. Although feel free to do so. But these are characters from one of our kind of main franchises called Dead Town. So Dead Town, I'll get the quick pitch for Dead Town is this was actually a TV show that my partner and I wrote a decade ago. We were in the midst of taking it out to sell it when The Walking Dead sold. And for some reason at that time, there could be 10 vampire shows on the air, but we were only allowed one zombie show. But the core thing for Dead Town, and the thing I love about it and I've always loved about it, is it's not about the post-apocalyptic zombie world that the characters live in. It's about a world that's already happened. And now it's about the characters that live there that just have to deal with it. It's like the zombies there are not really the kind of ever-present threat that they are in like The Walking Dead or whatever. It's kind of like the annoying part of the world that you have to learn to survive despite the fact that that's happening.
Right.
So we think of it as like Game of Thrones meets Dawn of the Dead, because there's all kinds of power dynamics and different factions, all these different things happening. And then I always have to say, people comment on the black and white style of it, which is intentional, but there's also a very strong narrative reason for that. So our kind of fun flip is that color plays a really strong part of the actual storytelling. And so the whole world is in black and white, which you come to realize is the POV of the main character. So he lost his family and everything in the plague. And so his worldview is everything is lifeless. It's all black and white. And then you start to see flashbacks of his life before, which are all
nice. Yeah. That's cool.
So it becomes a narrative device over the course of the series. So, we launched this first collection as, come and create a zombie in this world. It's a fully customizable mint, which is something we hadn't really seen before. So we were trying to optimize for, can we get people to create an emotional connection to a PFP or to an avatar character? And so it felt like the way to do that is let them design their own character rather than giving them, kind of a blind mint. So instead of it being as much of a lottery ticket, it's really more of a game character creation process. So you create your own character, you mint that character, and then bring it to Discord with us. We do these storytelling classes just like we talk about. And then the challenge to our community with the Dead Town characters was, what's the backstory? Who was this character before they became a zombie? And so working inside of the framework of the world, and we give them kind of a world Bible, which kind of dictates the general parameters that we're working inside of, what's the backstory? And so we ended up greenlighting 6 stories from the community, which are now in production as an anthology series. So we've got the core series, and then we'll now have this anthology series. It's all come from the community. And so they're getting to see those now come to life through working with artists. And we do it all in a public channel so people can really see like every step of the process.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool.
To the feedback, to the layouts, to like the whole thing. And so that's super cool. Like I didn't expect, we built it, but it didn't really occur to me until I went back and looked through the first one that got done, where I was like, oh, like you can actually like really see like this entire step-by-step thing, which you don't often get to see.
Right. Everything, it's all logged. It's everything is there.
And then the other thing we did, which I think is really cool, is those people that got greenlit, you can go see this on OpenSea, those 6 characters, I think we've updated 3 of them so far. 4 of them so far. Those 6 greenlit characters, we upgraded the NFTs. So we built something into the metadata and the way that we minted it and the way the smart contracts work, where those are now interactive. And it's actually something I've never seen before, but there you can go and literally click through the different states of the character. So you get full color version, which is a one-on-one piece of art, pre-apocalypse. You get the zombie version. There's an animated transition version. And so these become the most exclusive pieces of the collection. They're now considered canon in the world of Dead Town. So anything else that goes on to happen with those characters, there's revenue participation and all of that, just as if you would created Deadpool for Marvel, since we're talking about Rob.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And all of that becomes part of this larger ecosystem as it moves forward. Yeah,
that's awesome, man. I love it, and that's a lot of thought that's gone into that, and I certainly appreciate that. It's so one of the reasons I love doing stuff like this is because one, I get to meet amazing founders, right? But it's also great when there's a project that's clear. I mean, this, for again, outside looking in, it might seem like everything that Evan's saying is like kind of rolls off the tongue and stuff, and it's like, oh, it feels so natural. But it's the amount of effort and work and thought that has to go into coming up with this, just so it feels like it rolls off the tongue, right? It's intense.
Yeah.
It's an intense amount of work, and I can tell just by you expressing it that you guys have worked your ass off on it.
Yeah, I mean, thank God we love it, but
yeah.
But yeah, it's been. I mean, we've been. I mean, really, like this has been a year of work, kind of now coming to fruition.
Yeah.
And some bumps along the road, and some false starts, and some wrong. People that we partnered up with initially that we had to let go, and it's different hurdles, but all that, at the end of the day, none of it matters. It's like you just keep moving forward, and I think once you find something that you love, and I think the weird thing about this space in particular, we kind of touched on earlier, is like totally fine if you're not in this headspace yet, or if you never get into this headspace, but for those of us that have kind of fallen down this rabbit hole, it is just endless, and it's incredibly exciting, and like I can't stop thinking about it. Like,
I know.
24/7. Like I have dreamed NFT mechanics and had to wake up and like write them down to go like, can we do this?
Yeah, I tell people, like, when I was in a meetup in New York in like 2013, and everyone's here's probably heard this before, but I was in a meetup in 2013, and it was a tech talk, and they were talking about how they just came up with a way to finally connect this thing called a smart contract to an image, and how they thought it might revolutionize the visual arts.
Yes.
And it was, I don't remember the word NFT or non-fungible token being used. It may have, I don't remember. And I had a different startup at the time in the arts, but I remember walking out being like, man, first blown away at the opportunity, but also realizing that it was way too early because it was so high level and so technical, right? And of course, my like woulda, shoulda, coulda moment is like, why didn't I just go up to the stage and be like, I just going to work with you guys, like whatever you need. You know what I mean? I could be that OG that's like, yeah, I've been here since 2013. And, But yeah, like seeing it go from that point to where it is now, and I again, once I came back to it in like 2020, what was 20? Yeah, it was 2020. I started seeing it, and really 2021 is when we started working on the project. But like, it was almost like I could take my own personal Venn diagram and place it on top of NFTs, and NFTs was like the perfect bullseye. I've never seen that happen in my own personal life.
Yeah,
like where it's fine art meets IP brand character franchise creation with technology.
Yeah,
and I was like, am I seeing things? Is it just me? Is this wishful thinking on my part? But no, it's like legit. And then you come out, and all of a sudden every single NFT project is like talking about the toys, talking about the movie, talking about the animation, talking about the comic, and I'm like, oh, okay, we're talking. This is so. Certainly there are a few companies and projects that do it and have done it and will continue to do it.
Yeah.
But as an experienced producer of actual product, putting that on a roadmap is it's just ridiculous. Like it's damn near impossible. Like you said, like money's great, and certainly at a certain amount of a certain cap, you can blow money all day and night and finally get the thing done.
Sure.
With that said, that's not the way you want to go about things, and
well,
it really is.
And I mean, yes and no, because there's that taste thing that gets in the way.
Yeah. It's that taste, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, 100%, and I think that is, I think where I, my crystal ball says, the next phase of all of this is, now that we've kind of gone through this kind of first couple of cycles and waves and seen some of the challenges that we now face as a space, as a community, I think the next one of the things that is going to be most interesting in the next phase is really seasoned people that are grasping the technology as an extension of something that they already know how to do, as opposed to kind of just going like, oh, there's money here, how do I get some, and then what do I do with it? I think I think we'll see more big companies trying to find ways into the space. Inevitably, I think we'll see more traditional founders of other things that have been successful, like, oh, there's something going on over here, let me see what I can do there. But I think for those of us that really want to utilize this as an entertainment vehicle, I think that it really is going to be either starting with a certain amount of skill and experience to be able to execute on those things, or being able to genuinely build a team that has that experience. And I think either can work. But I've seen even some projects that I hold in very high esteem where they're doing the work, they've actually executed on what they said they were going to do, but the lack of experience is really to the detriment of the final product. And so it's like, you've got to give a lot of credit for like, oh, you did it, like you absolutely did it, and it's awesome. And if only there was sort of an experienced writer or storyteller or producer that could shape this a little bit, and to their credit, the people that we become kind of friendly with in that regard have also recognized that and are kind of taking the right steps to move forward. But it's, I do think this opportunity, whether you're the founder of a project or someone that is, a creator in some other capacity that kind of sees the opportunities that are in this space, I do think, there are great projects which need that kind of talent to kind of come in and help. And so, as a way to get into the space, you don't have to even start your own project. There's a lot of opportunities to work with other projects that need your skills.
That's a brilliant point. I think that's I think that's something that people coming into the space should absolutely think about. I think it's people tend to think like, oh, I don't have what it takes. I don't know how to code. I don't know how to do a smart contract. I don't know how to do this. I can't get into the space other than just buy stuff. And I think you're showcasing a way that's like, no, like this whole industry is so young that every single team needs something.
Yeah.
They all need something.
Yeah.
You just, as long as you inquire and you find out what that is, like you have the opportunity to really like hop in there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like you said, like, going up on stage and going like, I just want to work with you. Like there are lots of hungry people looking for you to be that person that says, I just want to work with you.
Yeah, that's 100%. It's very true. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to go to chat real quick. We got to see, acknowledge everybody that came in tonight. Dusty, of course, LFG. What's up, Dusty? Willie D, what's up, man? Welcome. Mastiff, let's go. Absolutely. Mastiff says 5 amazing NFTs. What are they? I totally missed that one, so I don't remember what I was talking about. Hype, what's up, Hype? But there are some amazing NFTs to buy, and they are here. That's right. That's right. Rageous, what's up, brother? How you doing? Welcome. Dickens's, how you doing? Welcome. He says, here for the entertainment NFT alpha, for sure.
Yes.
Hype says, I'm here for the entertainment NFT drama.
I don't know if we've delivered on that yet.
I know. No drama. What's up, J-Raw? Todd, Evan, what up?
How's it going?
That's right. And then people are, this is Dickens is saying they get addicted if they try. That's, if they came in and actually like stopped criticizing and started to actually do stuff. And then he says, well, unless they got rugged. But.
Although, you know what? I want to say something about unless they get rugged. Because yes, there are certainly bad actors and malicious, scams and phishing and, people that start projects just to take the money and run. And like all that certainly exists in the space. Mm-hmm. But I also I think people should think about like all the ways you have been rugged in the course of technology evolution forever. And as someone that absolutely got scammed on eBay in the early days of the internet and totally sent my stuff off, and I did Western Union when I shouldn't have. Never got the stuff that I was supposed
I did that once. I did that once for a laptop, and I learned my lesson.
100 for a laptop for me as well.
Same guy. We paid the same guy.
Now, I never did send money to a Nigerian prince, but it's like there are scams at every shift in evolution. Not like they ever go away, but it's like, every time there's a new technology and there's a way to take advantage of people, someone's going to be there to try to take advantage of people. And so it's important to kind of learn the ways that to protect yourself and to like become educated and kind of how to mitigate those risks. But I think that's another narrative that's, we want to try to squash a little bit about NFT is that, yes, there are some things you need to learn to be as safe and protected as you can and to manage your own stuff. But it's also just not specific to NFTs. It's just like the world, there are scammers in the world and you learn to protect yourself from those scammers. And now there's just a new paradigm to learn that inside of.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, Evan, this has been fantastic, man.
Yeah, I enjoyed it thoroughly.
This is awesome. I did not expect. I certainly expected a great conversation. I did not expect to have a tie to Gaijin and Stelfreeze and early comics.
That's amazing. Yeah,
we're going to continue. We'll have to continue this conversation.
Absolutely.
This is gonna be an old school nerd out.
I love it. Absolutely. Yeah,
for sure. And so you can hang on, Evan. I'm gonna set up everybody, say goodbye to everybody.
Well, let me just chill for 1 second.
No, please.
It's responsible of me to not do so.
100%.
So we are still minting Dead Town. We're going to keep it open until the NFT, until the comics drop in July. So we've got plenty of time to mint, but we are releasing some special edition traits that kind of every little bit, and they're limited edition traits. So one of the unique things about the drop is we are continuing to add some new things to it over time. So there are new ways to accessorize and create your characters. We are still doing storytelling on the Discord. So if that part appeals to you, get a character, come play. And one thing I will also say is that there are traits in the collection that will matter. So everything we design has a purpose. There's a reason that these things exist the way that they exist. And as the roadmap rolls out, as the project progresses, you'll be happy if you got certain things and you'll be happy if you got anything, but just to throw that out there. So
and that's macroverse.com.
That's at macroverse.com.
Yeah. Awesome. So everybody go to macroverse.com, check it out. The website's fantastic. I love that they're doing so much stuff over there that you got to check it out. I saw the link for the app. I'm definitely going to be downloading the app. So you guys should download the app as well. Check it out, especially if it's, with new technology coming, that's going to be able to baked into NFTs where you can actually read comics, where it's not just a gated content. It's not just a PDF link or something like that. I'm certainly interested in that. So everybody go to macroverse.com, check it out. Pick up your avatar, go into the Discord. I'm going to check out the storytelling things as well. I love it. I think it's fantastic. Evan, man, thank you so much for coming.
No, it's my absolute pleasure.
Everybody, go check it out. And then, as always, after our AMAs, feel free to hop into Discord. We usually do like an after party. We have games, and we just kind of like hang out. And usually, I get my ass kicked, but that's okay. I'm learning. But anyway, everybody, thank you so much for coming. And we will talk to you again soon. See you next time, everybody.